one fucking block. Idiot.
You probably know Vistaprint for business cards, but did you know we print everything you need to get your brand in front of your fans? We print banners and signs that help your
kids get off the bench and into the game. Over the last 30 years, Kidsport has supported over 200,000 young athletes across Alberta play the sports they love, regardless of financial barriers.
After my cardiac arrest at the Calgary airport. And with your support, they can save even more lives. Join me in supporting Calgary Health Foundation. Donate today. Visit givehealth.ca.
Now, you would think, Kyle, that after a busy concert with so much traffic, they would set up the lights so they would all stay green and everybody could just get out of there as quickly as possible. You would think that, wouldn't you?
I would think that. I'm guessing.
Well, you'd be wrong.
In practice.
In theory, you would do that. You would be wrong.
Welcome to 32 Thoughts, the podcast. Kyle, Elliott, and Dom back with you. Happy Monday. We're coming off a weekend in which, Frege, the headliner going in, was the Stanley Cup Final ×2 rematch down in South Florida. The Oilers victorious down there. You had Montreal and Toronto. Winnipeg Jets were in the news, the injury to Connor Hellebuck and how they're going to deal with all of that. Calgary played back-to-back, finishing up in Vancouver. Where is your head at? Where would you like to start when thinking of the 7 teams north of the border?
I have the title of the podcast for Dom, One Last Thing You Have to Worry About. And it's as if I was David Amber, who is Captain Panic. Whenever a Canadian team has a bad night, so we have a group chat, if there's like 5 Canadian teams playing and they go 0 for 5, it won't take long until Dave's texts start coming out. This is a disaster. Canadian teams are going to be 0-5 tonight. We'll be lucky if one makes the playoffs. So I am taking a page from David Amber's Book of Panic. And this podcast is titled, Whoa, Canada. Vancouver 30th, Calgary 31st, Toronto 28th, Winnipeg lost 2 in a row, as you mentioned. Hellebuck out now. Maybe Edmonton's season started to turn around. I think Montreal will be fine. I think Ottawa is obviously fine. Ottawa is carrying the Canadian flag.
Yes. That's why I didn't mention them off the top. They are exempt from the woe.
They are exempt from the woe. They are truly the Canadian capital right now. Not only geographically, but hockey-wise, they are carrying the flag. But the panic is real in many of these other markets. Where do you want to start, Kyle? You're the boss of this podcast. You tell me where you want to start.
Well, okay, if you're entrusting me with that, I will start with where I was on Saturday.
Yes.
Be where your feet are, right?
Yes.
So Saturday night in Montreal, Leafs and Canadians. Great place to be on a Saturday, as you know.
First of all, can I say something here before? I have a bone to pick with you.
Hold on, I got a bone to pick with you. That was like, how much time went past? That was 20 seconds after you said, it's your show, you do, where would you like to go? And you're like, hang on a sec. I need to say something.
That might actually be a new record for me.
That was unbelievable.
I have to talk about the decline of ringside reporting on Hockey Night in Canada. Okay? And I'm not talking about performance. Your performance is excellent. We have great ringside reporters. But this was, the decline of ringside reporting. There was a time when some of us were working as ringside reporters on Hockey Night in Canada, and we would show up in Montreal on a Friday night, and we would need to be carried to the morning skate on Saturday. What did you do on Friday night in Montreal, Kyle?
Got together with producer Jeff Giordat, and we worked. We had to go to work. Had
Did you
some
leave the
food in the
hotel?
hotel room? No, I did not. I got in a bit later than I otherwise would. I got in late. I stayed. It's like today's players now. It's the same thing, right? It's not like how it was before. Everyone's locked into their rooms. Xbox is packed.
Kyle,
Well rested for the morning.
this is a disgrace. A disgrace. Anyway, take us through what you saw at Toronto, Montreal.
Yeah. I used to be a little more lively before I started doing this twice a week.
Yeah.
Friday's a recovery day now.
Oh, my heart bleeds for you.
I can feel it. Okay. So I'm watching that game Saturday, like everyone else that was there. And that's the second period in particular. You know what it reminded me of?
What's
It
that?
took me back to nearly 8 years ago to the day, November 2017. So we're talking Matthews, Marner, Nylander's second year in the league.
Yep.
It was a game in Montreal on a Saturday. And Maple Leafs were the young upstart bunch. Montreal that year were older, were slow. And up until that season, the Canadiens had long dominated that rivalry. They had owned Toronto for a long, long time. That night, Charlie Lindgren started for Montreal. They chased him from the game, not because he was playing poorly, but because Claude Julien didn't want to make him face any more of the barrage, much like Berube did with Wool on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Toronto won 6-0. Matthews scored the fifth and sixth goals. On the sixth one, like stick handling threw everybody off the rush. This beautiful wrist shot, top corner. And he does this little circle along the glass. Didn't put his hands up or anything, just smiled at the crowd. I think it memed for a long while afterwards. It got
I know
good life
exactly
online.
which one you're talking about. Yep.
And I remember being in that building that night and thinking, the whole dynamic of this rivalry in particular is going to be different now going forward. Now, certainly Montreal's had their moments along the way. There was the playoff series in 21. They've won their handful of games over time. Anyways, watching that on Saturday, Elliot, was like a mirror reflection, a mirror opposite.
It
of
was
that
an
game back
Uno
in-
reverse card of that
It
game.
was. It was the arrow pointing back going, we're reversing it now. It was like the exact opposite of that game 8 years previous.
So there was something you said to me in the aftermath of that game when we were chatting on Sunday as you were traveling home. You said to me that, and this is why I really think that the sideline job, the ringside job, is still so important. You said to me that you have the sense that the concern before it was kind of creeping into the Leafs room, now it's there. Like I already felt it in the organization. You could feel it on the coaching staff, but it's always different to me when it's in the room. Because I always think, like, coaches are pessimists. They're born to be pessimists. Oh, we won that game 8-0, but we didn't dump the puck in well 3 times in the third period. That's what coaches are taught to do. Front offices, they're always pessimists. We won the game 10-0. Yeah, but we sucked the game before. That's what they're built to do. That's the way they are taught to think. Players are the optimists. We can always find our way out of this. We can figure this out. So when you said to me on Sunday, you see it seeping in, that's when I get worried for a team. Because the dressing room, if it goes, it's the last place to go. And you see it, eh?
Starting to, definitely. Like you're running out of answers, it feels like. Naturally, you're wired all the time to think, gonna get out of this, you're gonna get out of this. But it's how they look when they say it, the tone of their voice when they say it, the energy of it all starting to shift a little bit. Now, we have to point out, of course, they're not at full strength. They're missing a number of key guys, and that's a whole other side story as well.
You know, it's true, but, I'll just say this. I've been watching Tampa a lot the past week. Look at what they're missing, and they're grinding out wins.
Totally.
They are grinding out wins. You have to find a way. Everybody is beaten up this year. Like, even teams that are good and going well and their records are good, they're all talking about how they're getting crushed by the schedule. Like, and look, they're down.
And that's
Matthews,
the thing for Toronto. They're one of the few teams that can say, we haven't had a brutal schedule. They've been at home a lot. The back-to-backs have been favorable. They haven't been beaten up in the slightest yet.
Yes, now they're going on their first big road trip. But you're right, Kyle. Like injuries are crushing this league. Schedule is crushing this league. You have to find a way through, just like Tampa has. They've done an unbelievable. I mean, we're going to find out Monday. They lost Kucherov and Point in that win over Washington on Saturday night. And Cooper said we probably won't know until Monday how bad it is. So, if bad at all. So, there were two things you did in the game as the reporter that I thought were outstanding. And we'll get to the second one in a few minutes. But the first one was you showed the montage of Berube before the game being asked about injuries. And he's like, I don't know. And you can just tell he's tired of injuries already. And he's tired of talking about them. And, he got upset at the end of the game about how they collapsed in the second period and they had no pushback. And Berube is kind of taking the position that I was there. Yes, we're hurt, and yes, it's a thing, but everybody's hurt, and we have to find our way past it. I also got the sense from those clips, I think the uncertainty of some of these injuries is driving them crazy. That's the impression I really got. Like, why are you guys asking me? I have no idea. We really have no idea. Look, we'll see when Matthews comes back, but initially they were hoping Saturday, now maybe Wednesday. Stolarz, it's worse than they realized. Carlo, I think, was longer than they expected. And they have no idea on Tanev. So I think in Toronto's case, what's contributing to their frustration is that all these timelines are warped or not what they were thought or longer than they thought, and that's only added to the frustration. But I don't, some teams I look out there and I say they can do something, they can make a move that might help them here. Even though a lot of teams are saying there's just not enough out there trade-wise, there are teams I can see that if they wanted to, they could pull off a significant move to help themselves. I'm not sure right now, barring trading the guys they don't want to trade, that Toronto has that ability right now to pull something off that's really going to make a major difference for them. So I think, not that they're not trying, but I think that what that means is that they know, aside from the injured guys, the cavalry isn't coming. So they've got to figure this out. And the one thing I really feel, and I wasn't there like you are, is I think this group has begun to realize that this is going to be harder than they thought, Kyle. Much harder than they thought.
Big time. I mean, you look at it, Elliot, they wake up this morning, they're last in the Eastern Conference. Now, you could also flip that and say, well, they're only 4 points out of the playoffs because it's also jammed up in the East. It's a lot tighter than it seems to be in the West right now, where everybody's closer together anyways. But it's turning into, and the big thing with Berube, he keeps talking about they're a veteran team and all the things that he's seeing go wrong. He goes, that's not supposed to happen with this type of group. You look down the hallway at Montreal and say, they're one of the youngest teams in the league. They should be the ones having issues with confidence after giving up a couple of goals. They should be the ones having issues putting away games in the third period. They should be the ones having problems believing they can come back. But it's not the case. Those are the issues that the Leafs are going through. And it wasn't just Saturday. It's been much of this season. And I would just say for Montreal, because they both, I think they had combined 2 wins in 14 games coming into Saturday.
Both had bad goalie problems, both teams.
Yeah.
Although Wool has come back and played pretty well. Yes.
Yeah. It was an important start for Dobish on Saturday. And you can and St. Louis, reminded, and it's very much modern day coaching, right? My job is to convince people, right? That's so much of that role, especially at the pro level. And you could tell from where they were in October when everything was clicking for them. They were getting away with those last minute heroic comebacks, winning in overtime. We're winning. And then you start feeling good about all the goals going in. Habits start to change a little bit, and you can tell the last few days for Montreal, it was a snap back to reality, and it showed in how they played much of that game on Saturday. And when the Bell Center's olaying before the second intermission siren goes off, it tells you about everything you need to know.
Oh, yeah. When the Olays start, then you're in a bad way if you're the visitor team. That's a bad omen.
Yes, that's not a foolish crowd there, right? Like they know when to do that sort of thing.
Plus, it was Toronto, so they were happy to rev up early.
Oh, yeah.
Did you at least go out Saturday night?
Yeah.
Okay.
Briefly. Nothing crazy.
Oh, terrible. Anyway,
nothing crazy.
A couple other things. Martin St. Louis, that is one greasy mustache. Greasy.
Yeah.
It's Movember.
That's a beauty, though.
So I support it 100%. Good on you. Greasy. And secondly, I wanted to say I loved your interview with the Jack-Eye family as the brothers got a chance to play together. That was I'm not much of a wagerer, but that was the easiest bet of the night, that those two guys were both going to get into fights. I would have bet your next year's mortgage, Kyle, on that both of them were going to be fighting that night.
Well, now I wish you would have.
And you did a great interview with the parents. They're really nice people. I have to say, I tracked down Simona's number. That's the mother, Simona. To send I wanted to send. Remember a couple of years ago we did the great piece on the family where they were so helpful. So I just wanted to send a note, just wishing her congratulations on both brothers, Arbor and Florian, making it up to play their first game together in Florian's NHL debut. And I said, all the best to you, Jack, her husband, Sophia, the sister, and all of the Jack-Eyes. And she wrote back a couple minutes later and she goes, you left out our other daughter, Dominica, and she feels left behind. So I had to profusely apologize to Dominica and make sure that she knew that she was included. I felt terrible in the moment, but the gesture was meant to be kind. But it was pretty funny. I liked that she clapped back at me like that. Both of them. It was very well done. Gave me a good laugh.
Yes, excellent. And I rewatched that feature earlier the day just to kind of refresh my memory of the family story and that. And it is a good reminder that every now and then you are capable of doing good work. It was a very good piece.
That's a pretty good line, Kyle. Yes, I can do good work from time to time. But the key is set the bar low.
It's been the greatest bit of advice I've taken for you so far through all of this, Elliot. It's been very good. Okay, well, before we move on from Montreal here quickly, you were anticipating this as early as Saturday. Sunday, it's official that Alexandre Texier signs the one-year deal with the Canadiens after terminating his deal with St. Louis. Makes sense. Montreal was in on David Camp a week previous. Yep. They've got injuries up front, so shouldn't be overly surprised that they bring Texier into the fold.
No, not a huge surprise. And, Texier, look, Camp reminded people that you can do this. You're not in the NHL. If you want to walk away from the money, you can, and sign yourself a lesser deal that will allow you a better shot at playing. Because the issue with Camp was salary as much as anything else, and that was the same thing with Texier at 2.1. And I guess the Blues had let the league know that this was going to be a possibility and this could happen, and they gave permission for teams to at least talk to him to see what he'd be willing to do. And I heard a couple of things. Number one, I heard his preference was East. And secondly, a few teams told me that once the Canadiens were in, they knew that they were doomed. Because French guy, Montreal Canadiens, gonna be tough to beat. And that's exactly what turned out to be the case. And, the thing is, Texier takes a deal at 1 year at a prorated $1 million. If it doesn't work, he can be put into the minors and it doesn't count against the Canadiens cap. It's below the number that you can clear to the minors. So hopefully it works out for him. We don't have to talk about that, but that was a factor here. And, you know, I will say that the other Eastern teams were kind of like, French guy, Canadians were doomed. They knew pretty quick, I think, that he was going there. That's the impression I definitely got. Now, Kyle,
Okay.
the other game we were watching, a Canada-Canada matchup, was Vancouver and Calgary on Sunday night. A 4-point weekend for the Flames. They beat Dallas on Saturday. They beat Vancouver on Sunday. Calgary, you look at these standings and you would feel Calgary 31st, but surging. Vancouver 30th, but dropping. To me, watching on television, Kyle, it was kind of a passionless night in Vancouver. It's not to me that the Canucks didn't play hard. They did, but they got beat. And Dom, you were there. You were working the game, asking no questions. How did you find it in Rogers Place on Sunday night?
The only way I can describe it is there was a lot of apathy. Like, Jason Bruff tweeted out, like, nobody booed. No, there was no, like, displeasure from the fans. Like, it was almost like people just accepted their fate and left with their tail between their legs. Like, it was just another Canucks game.
Now, were Vancouver, I wondered if it was nearly like a Vancouver sports eclipse over the weekend, right? Because you had the Dynamite PWHL home opener on Friday, back at the
Those
Pacific
uniforms look
Coliseum.
really good, by the way. I really like those jerseys.
So
Beautiful.
glad they're back in that old barn. The
Yeah.
Whitecaps, unbelievable on Saturday, off to the conference final in MLS at BC Place. Did the Canuck or Vancouver sports fans simply run out of gas to feel any sort of way by Sunday? I don't know. It also could just be where the Canucks are at.
It's also like when you live in Vancouver and it's gray all the time, it's tough to have emotions for 3 straight days. I understand how that happens.
That's true. Yeah, we are very somber people, yes.
Yeah.
But
Elliot would know all that time he lived out there.
that's right. Yeah, you know, it's probably a little bit of acceptance. I don't deny that this kind of where the team is now. I don't have much to add about the Canucks right now except for this, Kyle. I think this is going to be rumor central in the league for a while, because until this long term gets sorted out with Quinn Hughes, it's not only going to be about him, it's going to be about what they do with some of the players around him. Like, there were Garland rumors last week. Sherwood is still not signed yet. You know, depending on what you're thinking, do you sign Sherwood or do you trade him for pieces that can help you? I think the Canucks are going to be very interesting, and I think there's going to be a lot, not in the same way that there was noise around them last year. That was very different, but I think there will be noise around them for what are we going to do about this player? What are we going to do with that player? And I think at the very least, if this continues, you're going to see the Canucks start to put some names around the league to say, okay, what can we do with this person, or what can we do with that person? What is their market value? And ultimately there'll be a decision on Hughes. So I think we're headed into that part of the season where there's going to be noise around those guys. By the way, Kyle, did you see Zari when he scored in that game on Sunday night? I think he was a little excited.
I saw him and I heard him all the way here in Edmonton.
It's been hard.
Scored opening night. Hasn't gone great for him since. And good interview with Brendan Parker post game. You could tell that one meant a lot more than just number 2 next to his name on the stat sheet.
There was a lot of noise around Calgary. And, you know, Kyle, I don't know if you watched on Saturday night, but I talked about it briefly. I thought this was self-inflicted by the Flames. Like, I talk about this a lot in Canada. In the Canadian market, there's a lot of noise just because of all the attention on these teams. And what you can't do is pour gasoline on the fire. And I thought last week Calgary poured gasoline on the fire. Don Maloney did some interviews. Brendan Parker did a great job during the intermission of the Buffalo game. And Eric Francis milked that for clicks. A two-piece interview, two-part interview.
All over him for that, eh?
I really like Eric. He's got a great sense of humor. He just laughs all that stuff off all that stuff and rolls off his back. But he did a great interview with Don that was on the website. And one of the things that's really difficult to figure out, and I'm not trying to insult anybody here, although it's going to come off really badly, is that I think a lot of these teams, they try to differentiate between what is social media noise and what their paying customers and sponsors really want. I've talked with teams about this before, like when something's really hot on social media, how does it affect their business? And the thing that teams tell me the most is what you have to be able to do is understand is if the social media commentary is really an expression by the ticket buying and the people who spend money on your team, because those are the people ultimately you have to listen to. The people who are spending money on your tickets, the people who are spending money on your sponsorship, and especially the people who are spending a lot of money on those things. Or is it just a loud group of people, but at the end of the day, it doesn't affect your bottom line? And that is what happens in situations like this one. And like, there was obviously a lot of reaction online and in media about the two Maloney interviews. Teams like the Flames, they will sit there and they will say, what does this mean really for our business? And, I think that was a self-inflicted error. There's the trade deadline isn't until March. There's not a lot of great offers flowing right now. Like, I can tell you right now, even if the Flames wanted to trade Nazem Kadri, as of Saturday, there was no offer there that was making them say, maybe we should trade Nazem Kadri. And the same case was for Blake Coleman, and the same case was for Mackenzie Weegar, the same case was for Rasmus Anderson, the same case was for anybody else on that team you might want to throw into that list. There was no trade offer. Like, even if the Flames wanted to tear it down to the studs, there wasn't anything on their desk last week that was going to say, oh boy, if we reject this deal, we might really regret it in 5 years. And that was why I think the timing didn't work, because there was nothing. Like, if you got to the trade deadline and it got out that you rejected really good deals because you didn't want to tear down, that's when you go out there and say, this is what our vision is and this is why we did it. There was no reason to do any of that. Like, there were people going online saying tonight at the Flames game, and this is Saturday night, you're gonna see jerseys thrown on the ice, you're gonna see a booing crowd. We didn't see any of that. And we saw a crowd that, as the Flames played hard and won the game, that was actually pretty excited. They got their money's worth for the night. So that's not to say that people aren't upset or people aren't legitimately angry, or there isn't a group of fans that don't like to hear what they say. But I was really watching for that on Saturday. Was that an angry crowd? And I didn't see it. So I would sense that the Flames would look at it and say, we've got to get past this week and we've got to get back on our path. And right now, all they're going to do is they're going to play hard. Like, they're not going to make the playoffs. I think we all know the math, it's too much. They're not going to make the playoffs. But what you can do is you can play hard. What you can do is you entertain your public that at least goes to home games. And you can say, hey, you know what, maybe the team isn't great, but had a good time tonight, and they got a win on the weekend and then a second one on the road. Like, the thing you have to do is compete. Now, Kyle, the interesting thing said to me is, if you really look at Calgary, the rebuild is already underway. Like that, I was talking to someone on Sunday morning, and they said, what the Flames just said is that we're basically in our rebuild already. Like, look at it. All of a sudden, they got Parekh, they got Gridden, they got Reshny and Potter, who they took in the first 2 rounds last year. They got Brustowitz, they got Hanzik, who unfortunately got hurt on that play, and he looked like he was starting to come on. They have Henry Muse, unfortunately got hurt this year, but he looks like he's going to be a good prospect for them. They got a couple other guys. People were telling me, like, people said, like, the Flames have lottery tickets. They may not have the biggest one, but they look like they're on track to get one of the biggest ones this year. So, like, in a lot of ways, the rebuild is underway. Secondly, the other thing that I said is that the Flames may not want to deal these guys, but what happens if the players say, you know what, I want to go somewhere else? Now, remember, Calgary went through that a couple years ago. They dealt Hanifin and they dealt Markstrom. And some of these players have long-term contracts, like Kadri does. Some other guys don't have as long deals. So eventually, they might decide, hey, this isn't time for me, or I'm not ready to go through where we are now at 31st in the league. Now, I want to stress that's not happening right now. That's not the case. They don't have any trade requests in there from their veterans. Believe me, I checked on Saturday. None of their veterans are asking out right now, as of Saturday. So, but if it changes, then Calgary might be forced to pivot. They were forced to pivot away from Hanifin. They were basically forced to pivot away from Markstrom. So they don't have full control over the situation. So we'll see how this plays out. But right now, Kyle, they're playing hard. They're competing. They've got a long way to go. They're not going to make the playoffs this year. But we still have 60 games to play. We still have months before the trade deadline. We don't have any great offers yet. It's way too premature to know where the Calgary Flames are going. And I'll tell you something else that matters here. They know until this new building is built, it is very hard for them to get free agents. So they're not going to be throwing money at their problems in free agency, because I think right now they don't think they can. And the other thing they're not looking at is you don't see them making panic trades for short-term help, right? I think they know better than that. It's also really interesting. You know what another team told me about them, Kyle? Is they said that with Wolf, they don't think they can be truly bad.
I know it hasn't been the ideal season that he would
started
want,
badly. He's starting to come on.
I totally see what you mean. And now, like, Cooley's putting together some good efforts.
Yes, and you know what? Cooley's spot was in trouble at the beginning of the year, and now he's on fire, and now he's the Nietzsche of the National Hockey League with "We're all gonna die."
Yes. What was the great line? Nothing matters, no one cares, we're all gonna die.
We're all gonna die.
Yeah, very good.
But another team did tell me that the Flames have kind of said, like, with Wolf there, they don't really think they can be truly awful, because they think the beginning of this year was a blip as opposed to the real deal. The last thing I just want to say about the Flames is one of Don Maloney's answers was he wouldn't talk about Conroy, and Flames fans assume the worst. I'll just say I'll be very surprised if he's not extended. He's in the last year of his deal, and I would be surprised if he was not extended. I think they are taking care of business in that front office, and I think they will take care of him too. I would be surprised. I've been wrong before, and I will be wrong again, but I would be surprised if he does not get extended, because I think they feel he's doing a very good job.
And you mentioned the new building that's coming. That's all going to be part of this. It's one thing about attracting free agents in the meantime, but nobody wants to be limping into a new venture like that by way of how your team looks, results-wise. So I can understand that all part of it. And would it be foolish to think that in reading and listening to the things Don Maloney had to say over the past week, that they would not echo similar feelings to how ownership feels about all of this?
Oh, I think so. Like, Don Maloney's at all the Board of Governors meetings with Murray Edwards. Like, he knows exactly what they think. But, like, again, as I've said, people said, oh, they're not going to trade these guys. Well, let's just see, okay? Rasmus Andersson is at the end of his contract, right? And we've talked about this before. One of the things I've heard about Andersson is he changes his mind, staying or going, like you and I change socks, which is like every 6 weeks. So, like last year at the end of the year, he was like, I don't think I should come back. And he showed up at training camp, and he was like, I think I might want to stay. But he's got to find a deal that both sides are comfortable signing. And right now, they're not. They're not even close, from what I understand. So, like, that happened with Hanifin. Hanifin, they actually had pretty much like a verbal agreement. And then they went on a losing streak, and he kind of changed his mind, and Calgary backed away, and eventually he got dealt. So they kind of have some experience with this, but that's the thing here that I think got lost this week, is that the players have say in this too. If Andersson can't make a deal with Calgary, and he's starting to play really well, he's played really well lately, he's going to be gone. If player X, name one of those veterans, says, this looks too long for me, I'd like to go somewhere where I might be able to win sooner, then no matter what Calgary thinks, they're going to have to move that player. So there's time here to sort this all out. In the meantime, the players are doing what they have to do, and that is going out there, and they play hard. They don't always win, but they play hard. And I'll tell you something, the thing that I thought was really good, and I know we're going to talk about Rantanen in a couple minutes, but Huberdeau making a beeline for him. Like, if those players weren't going, or those players didn't care, nothing would have happened. But the guy on the ice who maybe you least thought was going to be, he was the closest guy, and he didn't think twice. By the way, let me say this. If you start a fight with a guy who gets thrown out of a game, you should not get an instigator.
Agreed.
That is terrible rule. Terrible rule.
Agreed. Totally. And I think just last thing, for the Calgary fan base, feels like a lot of them look at it, Elliot, since 2009, they really haven't had consecutive playoff appearances. I know 2019 was a great year. You get into the qualifying round in 2020. Right? So it's trying to find, okay, where's the proof of the plan of where this is all going from their perspective?
Like I said, this week that one was on the Flames. They created a problem for themselves that they didn't need to create. Like, I don't blame the fans at all for this one. Okay,
Edmonton, Elliot, down in Florida, where their season ended the last 2 years. By the way, that pregame interview with Marchand that you did, and then Bieksa jumped in partway through. First of all, do you realize, I don't know if you even saw it, did you know like what he was reacting to right as the interview started? Like something was going on off camera that his eyes lit up at. Did you notice that?
No, I actually didn't.
Okay. All right.
Maybe it was Sam Reinhart walking in like the star of Miami Vice.
Could have been.
I love that. What an outfit.
So, okay.
I had a lot of lonely nights in high school, but I was happy to stay home and watch Miami Vice on Friday nights.
Yeah, before you were out till 3 a.m. in Montreal on Fridays.
That wasn't until I had a professional career. Yeah. That's right, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I didn't know what it was. But first of all, it was Brian Spears' idea, the producer. It was his idea that I was going to start the interview, and then Kevin was going to walk in. And initially, it was pretty funny. Like, Spearsy said, you ask him 2 questions, and Kevin comes in for the last one. And then Kevin and I changed it. I said, no, I'm just going to ask one, and Kevin's going to come in for the second one. And we said, you know how producers love this. We said, Brian, we're producing this segment now. He's like, oh, okay, go ahead. So, but it worked.
Boris
It worked really
Bierzi.
well. Yeah, it worked really well.
And you couldn't help but notice the photos over both of Marchand's
Yes.
shoulders in the background. Hey, that was
I actually wonder, now that you mentioned that he was smiling about something, maybe that was it, because you know what, Kyle, that might have been it, because initially when they were doing the test with whichever technical person was standing and testing the headset, he was down the hallway. Like the hallway was in the background. So what Kyle's talking about, for those of you who didn't see it, is Brad Marchand stood next to a wall where you could see them lifting the Stanley Cup in two pictures. So
it was two like action shots of them scoring from the. I think it was just the last year's Stanley Cup final.
It was action shots. Okay, I thought it was holding the Stanley Cup. So Marchand stood in front of action shots from last year's Stanley Cup final, and when we were testing the shot, Kyle, it was down the hallway. So I wonder if Marchand moved.
If he cheated,
He said, "Let's do it here."
That's what I said. I looked. It was you couldn't help but notice what was going on.
Good
behind
pickup.
it.
Maybe that was it.
So
I'm wondering if that's the game that turns around Edmonton's season.
Now we just gotta wait and see. Because I mean, I didn't see much of it. I was doing the game in Montreal at the same time, but it looked like an honest W on the road after a road trip that felt like was never ending, and I wasn't even part of it for the Oil.
It was a long road trip. I think if you're Edmonton, you're sitting and saying, maybe this is the game that gets us going. And as we talked about on Friday's pod, it was their 16th road game of the year, more than anyone else. So you kind of look at it and say, we were so negative and pessimistic about the way the Oilers were going. Now you can look at it and say, hey, I think they only have like one more big trip left. You can sort of set it up as, we got through this. We survived. It wasn't great, but we survived, and we've got more home games left than anybody else does. So there is a positive way to spin that. I thought there were a couple things about this that were interesting. Number one,